Before Halo, before Excel, and before there was even Windows, there was Flight Simulator. It's Microsoft's oldest franchise, having turned 40 this year. It's been over a decade since the last installment in the Flight Simulator series, but it's getting ready to take off again with Microsoft Flight Simulator. The game has been in the works for over 3 years, and we got our first glimpse of the game at E3, but we recently had the chance to climb inside the cockpit and get our hands on for the first time. Flight Simulator is coming to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate next year, and if you're not familiar with the series, prepare to get excited because it looks incroyable. So to get you caught up, here's everything you need to know. The biggest thing about Flight Simulator, literally, is that the game includes the entire Earth. Yes, all of it. The game is being developed by Asobo Studio, who set a Guinness World Record back in the day for the biggest playable area in a console game in 2009 with their racing game Fuel. And with Flight Simulator, they're smashing that record to absolute pieces. The game takes advantage of the same satellite data used for Bing Maps. Some of the scans are accurate down to 3 centimeters, and the game takes those and turns them into convincing 3D landscapes. The big landmarks are modeled by hand, but that still leaves a lot of the world to fill in. This is where machine learning algorithms come in, figuring out where they should generate terrain surfaces, buildings, and the game's casual 1.5 trillion trees. So if there's a patch of green on the satellite image, the game will automatically lay down some 3-dimensional turf. Although, if you're close enough to appreciate each individual blade of grass, it probably means you're about to crash. Flight Simulator's world is full of these little details, like waves that are affected by the wind and traffic whizzing around on the streets. It's such a faithful recreation of the real world that you'll be able to chuck away the map and navigate by roads and landmarks, if you know the area, of course. Yep. You pretty much can go anywhere you like. You can pick any airport in the world to take off from, or just pick a point on the globe and start flying there. So whether you want to play virtual tourist and visit famous landmarks like the Great Wall of China, or just find your house and do a flyover, the world is literally your oyster. Essentially, Flight Simulator is streaming the entire Earth onto your device as you play. The game recreates 2 million cities and 40,000 airports, which, as you can probably imagine, is a bit more data intensive than streaming music or any old TV show. And all that Bing Map data adds up to a whopping 2 petabytes. That's 2,000 terabytes, or if you're feeling fruity, 2 million gigabytes. The game uses something called adaptive streaming, meaning that the better your internet connection is, the more accurate and detailed the terrain you'll be flying over will be. You can play without an internet connection though, with the game offering 2 options. Either you can play in the offline mode, which uses the same satellite data, but relies more heavily on procedural generation to fill in the gaps. Alternatively, you can pick a region and download it to your machine for high quality flying, even when you're not connected. But of course, it's not all about what's below you as you fly. Asobo is pouring just as much love and attention into the sky itself. With volumetric clouds that cast shadows and a ridiculous 600-kilometer draw distance, these have to be the greatest skies ever seen in a video game. And everything is realistically simulated too, with an atmospheric model that includes pressure, temperature, humidity, and air density. The same also goes for the weather. From rainbows to tornadoes, everything is simulated with real-world aerodynamics to change the way you fly. Rain clouds bring a little turbulence, but a full-blown hurricane will really test your skills as a pilot. Flight Simulator wants its version of Earth to be as close to the real world as possible, but is better in at least one way. You can now command the weather. If you want to experience what it's like to be up in the air right now, the game pulls in real-world weather data and matches it to whatever location you're flying through. But you can also choose the conditions yourself using an in-game menu that can flick between storms and clear blue skies without ever having to stop playing. This is going to be pretty handy if you're planning to fly around Britain and don't fancy dealing with the endless amount of rain we're having at the moment. There's one last element of Flight Simulator we haven't touched upon yet, and it's a pretty important one. What you're going to be flying in. As with every other aspect, the planes have been giving a huge overhaul with an entirely new flight model engine underpinning it all. No 2 planes feel the same because every single part of the aircraft, from the wings to the cockpit, has an impact on its aerodynamics. And of course, they look pretty lovely too. You can choose to fly from an external view or jump right into the cockpit with incredibly detailed 4K interiors that are lit dynamically based on the conditions you're flying in. If you're a newcomer to Flight Simulator and all those dials and instruments look a little bit daunting, then you'll be pleased to know that the game lets you set the level of complexity. There are a bunch of assists you can turn on, as well as checklists to help guide you through the more complicated bits. Asobo also want this to be the most accessible game in the series so far. There's full support for colorblind players, and the game will be playable with an Xbox One controller and the Xbox Adaptive Controller. On the other end of the spectrum, however, if you're a hardcore simulation fan with your own flight stick and pedal setup, there'll be plenty to enjoy here too. Asobo is working to make the game compatible with as many peripherals as possible, and the game will support mods so the community can keep adding to it after launch. There's plenty more to discover about Flight Simulator before it lands way next year. For example, we know the game will include multiplayer, but full details are yet to be revealed. All you really need to know is that the game is launching on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate next year. In the meantime, stay up to date by hitting that subscribe button and hitting a like on this video, but also make sure you check out our daily streams over on Mixer. Come and say hi to me in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!